The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee, dark and inviting, always signaled the gentle beginning of a brand new day. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, painting golden stripes across the worn linoleum floor and old wooden table. A distant church bell chimed 6 times, its resonant sound carried softly on the cool Michigan morning air. The gentle hiss and then a soft whistle of the kettle on the stove announced the perfect temperature for hot tea. This familiar symphony of scents and sounds filled the small house with a comforting sense of quiet anticipation. Doesn't a particular smell just transport you back to moments you thought were long forgotten and tucked away? This was small-town Michigan in 1952, a time when life moved with a deliberate and unhurried grace. The air still hummed with a quiet post-war optimism, a gentle hope for the future after years of great uncertainty. People often spoke of a simpler era then, where community ties felt stronger than almost anything else you could imagine. The world felt smaller, yet every day held the promise of profound discovery within its humble, familiar boundaries. Helen Voss, at 28, carefully stirred the dark coffee, watching the steam curl upward in delicate, wispy tendrils. She hummed a melody from a radio program, a light tune that seemed to dance in the sunbeams, illuminating the small room. With a soft click, she opened the kitchen curtains wider, revealing the budding maple tree just outside the window pane. She tenderly watered her small African violet, touching its velvety leaves with a gentle, knowing touch. The distinctive clatter of the morning newspaper dropping through the mail slot onto the floor was a familiar, comforting sound. Helen then arranged 3 pale yellow tulips in a slender vase, their petals soft like new spring butter. She began to prepare breakfast, slicing fresh bread for toast and setting out the good china plates for their morning meal. Helen neatly folded the previous day's newspaper, placing it carefully on the polished side table in the living room. Do you remember the simple joy of tending to a small houseplant, knowing you were nurturing something beautiful and alive? She gently polished a cherished teacup, admiring the delicate floral pattern painted around its smooth porcelain rim. With a slight adjustment, she straightened the braided rug by the fireplace, ensuring its colors truly popped against the wood. Her gaze drifted to a framed photograph on the mantelpiece, adjusting its angle by just a fraction of an inch. A faint, contented smile touched her lips, a private moment of peace before the day fully unfurled its many demands. Helen understood that these quiet, everyday rituals were the true foundation of a well-lived and truly happy life. She tied on her apron, a practical gesture that also felt like donning a uniform for the day's important, loving work. Her humming grew a little louder, a cheerful, wordless song expressing the quiet joy she felt living in this very house. She paused at the window, observing a robin hopping purposefully across the dewy green lawn in search of early worms. Helen meticulously wiped down the kitchen counter, leaving no crumb or stray drop of water behind on the clean surface. A kitchen, clean and ready for the day, felt like a quiet promise of order and deliciousness to come for her family. Her fingertips grazed the smooth, cool wood of the windowsill, a silent acknowledgement of the home she nurtured daily. The kitchen truly felt like the heart of their home, a warm and inviting space where all good things seemed to begin. Every corner of the small house felt comfortably lived in, bearing the gentle marks of everyday joy and shared memories. Morning light now filled all the rooms, chasing away the lingering shadows and bringing a fresh brightness to everything. Maple Street itself remained remarkably quiet, stirring slowly, as if reluctant to break the morning's peaceful slumber. Across the way, she could just see Mrs. Henderson's kitchen light flicker on, signaling her own morning routine had begun. A distant dog barked once, a friendly sound that seemed to punctuate the otherwise gentle symphony of the waking street. Helen truly cherished these moments of morning peace, a quiet time to reflect before her bustling day truly got underway. This was her first real home, a place she and George had built together with their hands and their hopeful young hearts. Do you remember that feeling when every single item in your house seemed to hold a precious, unspoken story of its own. The wooden front porch swing swayed gently in the breeze, patiently awaiting its afternoon occupants for long, pleasant talks. A vibrant rose bush, just beginning to bud, stood sentinel by the front door, promising fragrant blooms in the warm summer months. Maple Street possessed an undeniable charm, its tree-lined sidewalks and neat houses exuding a timeless, welcoming appeal. A profound sense of belonging settled over Helen, a feeling of being exactly where she was meant to be in the wide world. Each new day felt like a clean slate, a fresh opportunity to create more beautiful memories within these cherished walls. The familiar rhythm of their small town offered comfort, a predictable flow that anchored their lives with gentle stability. She imagined the sweet scent of lilacs from the neighbor's yard, already anticipating their fragrant arrival in the coming weeks. Birds chirped enthusiastically from the towering maple trees, their cheerful songs a lively soundtrack to the morning's quietude. The entire neighborhood seemed to awaken with a gentle sigh, slowly stretching into the promise of another glorious spring day. The small house on Maple Street was a sturdy vessel, sailing them gently through the calm waters of their unfolding lives. Helen smiled, anticipating the day ahead, knowing it would be filled with the simple, good blessings of a happy, well-loved home. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window curtains, casting a warm glow on the coffee cups. This was their very first home, a lovely reward after the challenging years of the recent war. Each morning brought a fresh sense of beginning, an unwritten chapter in Helen's unfolding life story. They had saved every small penny, putting $200 down on this dream with immense pride. Do you remember that feeling when you truly owned something for the very first time? Something entirely your own. Helen gently placed her coffee cup on the windowsill, watching the vibrant green maple leaves flutter outside. The aroma of toasting bread and brewing coffee lingered in the air, a familiar scent bringing quiet comfort. Her husband, George, was already in the garden, his steady shovel sounds echoing from the backyard. He always possessed wonderful energy, even before the sun fully appeared over Maple Street's charming rooftops. It was a quiet dedication many men of that era showed, a sturdy foundation for their growing families. The neighborhood children had already begun to play, their bright, clear laughter echoing across the low fences. The clatter of the milk truck stopping down the street delivered cool, fresh glass bottles to every household. The May morning air in Michigan carried the scent of freshly cut grass and gentle dampness from the rich earth. The entire street seemed to awaken with a gentle rhythm, preparing for another day filled with simple promise. Small moments like these create the tapestry of life, weaving together our most cherished and precious memories. Helen smiled, beginning to prepare a hearty breakfast for George before he left for the local factory. She carefully arranged plates of eggs and bacon, alongside golden brown, perfectly crisp slices of toast. Their life on Maple Street was built from these tiny acts of kindness and daily, unwavering care. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for this cozy little home, for the life they were building together. Each morning was a reminder that they had overcome much to achieve this simple, yet profound, peace. After breakfast, Helen often walked over to Mrs. Peterson's next door, exchanging a few words about the weather. Mrs. Peterson always had a freshly baked apple pie on her windowsill, its sweet aroma wafting through the garden. Neighbors frequently helped each other, sharing delicious recipes or borrowing a cup of sugar when needed. It was an era where doors were never locked and smiles were always genuinely exchanged between friendly faces. Do we still retain that warm community spirit in our busy, fast-paced lives of the present day? In the afternoons, neighborhood women often gathered on front porches, knitting or mending clothes together. They told stories about their families, exchanging advice on raising children and maintaining happy homes. Their gentle chatter mingled with the rustling wind through the tree branches, creating a soft, soothing symphony. These simple gatherings were an indispensable source of encouragement and joy in their everyday existence. Their friendships were like strong, interwoven threads, knitting a warm, comforting blanket for this small community. Children ran freely through the streets, playing hide and seek and jump rope without a single worry. The elders sat on their porch swings, smiling as they watched the children play in serene contentment. An old ice cream truck occasionally drove by, its cheerful jingle bells signaling a small, delightful treat. Life seemed to move with a slower rhythm, each day possessing its own, very simple yet distinct beauty. Do you remember that feeling of safety and carefree joy as a child surrounded by a loving community? Helen often spent her time tending to the rose bushes in her garden, which bloomed with vibrant colors. Each blossom was a gentle reminder of the beauty and patience and the slow, graceful growth of life. She felt a deep connection to this land, to her neighbors, and to the community they had lovingly built. It was much more than just a house. It was an extension of themselves, a haven for new dreams. All these things, from the peaceful mornings to the lively afternoons, comprised the very essence of life. The memories of that period remain vividly alive in Helen's mind, carrying a special warmth and comfort. She remembered the long summer evenings when fireflies twinkled in the soft, cool air of the night. The crickets chirped from the bushes, harmonizing with the distant croaking frogs from the nearby pond. It was a simpler world, yet it held a rich abundance of human connection and enduring, cherished values. A world where happiness was found in the smallest things, in the loving presence of cherished family and friends. Helen often closed her eyes, imagining herself still standing on that porch, breathing the crisp air of 1952. The feeling remains perfectly intact, a precious gem carefully preserved within her treasury of memories. It was the beginning of a long journey, a story of love, perseverance, and a beloved home, a house on Maple Street, where her life truly began with her dear George by her side. And that is where we will delve deeper into their early years within that warm, welcoming home. Helen and George had searched for months, dreaming of a place to truly call their own after the war. Every Sunday afternoon, they would drive around town, peering hopefully at for sale signs through misty windows. Finding a home in 1952 felt like reaching for a star, a beacon of stability after years of uncertainty. Do you remember that particular yearning for permanence after the world had seemed so unsettled? Then came Maple Street, a quiet, tree-lined lane filled with modest, well-kept, single-family homes. Number 47 stood out with its welcoming porch and sturdy frame, an immediate sense of belonging. It wasn't grand or new, but it possessed an honest charm, promising a lifetime of quiet domestic joy. The small white picket fence, though slightly weathered, seemed to gently invite them inside their future. Helen recalled Mrs. Henderson, the real estate agent, holding a thick brass key, her smile warm and encouraging. They stepped across the threshold, feeling the solid oak floorboards beneath their excited, hopeful feet. A faint smell of lemon polish and old wood lingered pleasantly, a comforting scent of previous happy lives. This particular scent, a blend of age and care, felt like a gentle whisper of the house's long history. The living room was small but bright, bathed in the soft afternoon light filtering through lace curtains. Empty of furniture, the space echoed with their footsteps, amplifying the quiet hopes they held so dear. She imagined a comfortable sofa by the window, a radio playing soft tunes, a place for peaceful evenings. How quickly an empty room can fill with the vibrant, colorful dreams of an eager young couple, couldn't it? The kitchen, though outdated, featured a deep porcelain sink and sturdy, built-in wooden cupboards. There was an old icebox, still common then, awaiting a delivery of a fresh block of ice every other day. Helen pictured herself baking pies on the countertop, the sweet aroma filling their cozy new home. An icebox delivery was a weekly ritual back then, the iceman's truck rumbling down the street, a familiar sound. Upstairs, 2 modest bedrooms offered peaceful retreats, with sloped ceilings and small, square windows. The main bedroom overlooked the backyard, a small patch of grass waiting for a garden and children's laughter. Their future seemed to stretch out before them in those rooms, vast and full of delightful, uncharted possibilities. Helen felt a lightness in her heart, a joyful flutter, as if she had finally found where she was meant to be. The price was $5,000, a vast sum, but incredibly within their carefully saved means. Their precious down payment amounted to $200, painstakingly saved over many thrifty years. George had worked extra shifts at the factory, and Helen had taken sewing jobs, each penny a step closer. That $200 represented countless sacrifices and shared dreams, a testament to their unwavering commitment. They returned to the agent's office, the air thick with anticipation, the scent of old paper and new beginnings. George, always so calm, gripped Helen's hand firmly beneath the table, a silent promise of their shared future. Mrs. Henderson slid the papers across the desk, her fountain pen poised, ready to seal their destiny. Signing those documents felt like planting a tiny, precious seed, knowing it would grow into a mighty, sheltering tree. Then, the key. A simple, dull metal object that suddenly felt heavier than gold in Helen's trembling hand. It represented not just a house, but a home, a sanctuary, a canvas for their lives together, finally begun. They walked out into the crisp autumn air, the vibrant Michigan leaves crunching underfoot. A joyful symphony. The whole world seemed to hum with new potential that afternoon. A quiet melody of hopeful, shared dreams. Driving back to Maple Street, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows, painting their new world in golden hues. They parked their trusty Ford sedan, its engine humming softly, a familiar sound of their simple working life. Helen remembered standing on the porch, gazing at the door, her heart swelling with an emotion beyond mere words. That particular mixture of relief and immense excitement, after years of waiting, is truly unforgettable. Isn't it? She inserted the key, turned the lock, and the satisfying click echoed like a welcoming, gentle drumbeat. The door swung open, revealing the empty, waiting rooms, ready for their personal touch, their unique story. They stepped inside, hand in hand, into the quiet embrace of their own four walls. A world entirely their creation. The quietness of an empty house, before it is filled with life, holds a certain profound beauty, a promise of things to come. Helen walked from room to room, touching the walls, imagining curtains, a rug, a comfortable armchair. George stood in the doorway, simply smiling, his eyes reflecting the deep contentment in his loving heart. The afternoon light faded slowly through the windows, painting the bare floors with the last golden rays of day. A profound sense of peace settled over them, a quiet understanding that this was exactly where they belonged. The air grew cooler, and the faint scent of wood smoke from a neighbor's chimney drifted gently through the open window. They just stood there, together in their very first home, watching the soft twilight deepen around them. They eventually found their perfect little house, nestled on a quiet, tree-lined street. Much like a whispered dream, it boasted a welcoming small front porch and a tidy little garden patch in the back, seemingly just right. A humble, small white "For Sale" sign stood planted quite modestly in the perfectly manicured front lawn. Its address was Maple Street, and the name itself simply sounded so sweet and utterly perfect to Helen's ears. Can you recall that sudden rush, that joyous thumping of your heart, when you find something truly special? Her husband, George, felt that exact same hopeful tug within his own steadfast and loving heart. The house was a classic two-story, built of sturdy, dependable red brick, looking quite solid and enduring. It featured 3 modest bedrooms upstairs, just barely enough space for their hopeful little family. A cozy kitchen boasted cream-colored painted cabinets and a gleaming large white porcelain sink. Many post-war homes received their new refrigerators delivered right to the door, which was always a grand joy. $200 for a down payment seemed like such an enormous sum of money back then. They had carefully saved every single penny from George's humble post-war factory wages. Loose change was stashed carefully away in an old jam jar placed high up on the kitchen shelf. Every single evening, they would count their coins and tenderly dream about their shared future. That money, though seemingly modest, felt like a tiny, promising seed ready to blossom. Finally, the momentous day of signing arrived. A bright and hopeful May morning, they sat together in the small, quiet lawyer's office, the air thick with solemn importance. George signed his name first, his hand firm, yet trembling slightly, with profound emotion. Helen followed, feeling an incredible surge of pure hope and overwhelming joy within her. The simple act of signing felt small, yet it profoundly changed their entire world forever. The heavy brass key felt significant and substantial in Helen's palm, a weighty, meaningful object. They drove straight to Maple Street, unable to wait even another single moment longer. Opening that front door for the very first time as official owners felt utterly tremendous. They stepped inside the quiet, empty space, each tentative footstep echoing softly. Do you remember that singular feeling of a brand new, empty house, just waiting for life? The rooms were clean and quiet, carrying the faint scent of fresh paint and old familiar wood. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows, highlighting tiny, dancing dust motes in the air. A true roof that truly belonged to them, a safe place to begin everything fresh and new. Every single corner held unspoken promises for their hopeful and unfolding future together. Many post-war, first-time homeowners often had to install their own telephone lines themselves. They walked through each room, mentally planning where furniture would sit and what colors to paint. A comfortable armchair would go right here. A sturdy kitchen table would be perfect over there. They would soon fill the bare, echoing walls with cherished family photographs and happy memories. A simple life, full of quiet affection and the deep, abiding joy of true togetherness. This humble little house would be the very place where their story truly began to unfold. They sat together on the cool kitchen floor, simply holding hands, sharing the moment. The setting sun painted the kitchen window in hues of gold, casting a gentle, warm glow. Birds chirped softly outside, a tranquil evening symphony welcoming them to their new place. This was theirs, unequivocally theirs, a quiet miracle after all the long years of war. George looked at Helen, and Helen offered him a soft, knowing smile, full of shared hope. The quiet evenings that followed were filled with small, whispered conversations and tender dreams. They spoke of future children, of joyful family dinners, and of simple, shared daily routines. This small house would witness it all. Every precious passing moment of their lives. The scent of wood and new life mingled gently together in the warm, inviting air. After all these passing years, does that unique feeling still linger softly in your own heart? It was a profound comfort. This quiet knowledge of having a place to truly call one's own. A charming little nest built upon the very simplest of shared dreams and enduring hopes. That house on Maple Street became the strong and steady foundation of their entire existence, a cherished place filled abundantly with laughter, a few gentle tears, and enduring, steadfast love. And Helen would forever remember the quiet peace found within those very first beloved walls. Helen Voss awoke gently in her small Maple Street house. As the early morning light began to softly filter through the bedroom window, the familiar sounds of a waking household began to softly stir, gently signaling the comfortable commencement of another brand new day. Helen always rose before anyone else, cherishing the quiet moments of the household before the outside world truly began its daily bustling. Soon enough, she heard George, her husband, begin to stir in their comfortable bed, preparing himself for his long workday ahead. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee quickly drifted through the small kitchen, a comforting and wonderfully familiar scent. Their breakfast was typically simple, yet always enjoyed together, with soft, gentle conversations shared across the small kitchen table. George worked at the local automobile parts factory, and he consistently left for his shift promptly at the same time each morning. His daily farewell kiss was a cherished ritual, a tender promise of his welcome return home when the long evening arrived. After George departed for work, Helen would begin her household chores, diligently tidying and organizing their small, cozy home. Every room received her tender attention, ensuring the whole house remained a comfortable and truly inviting sanctuary. The house seemed to breathe with her efforts, a living entity responding to her tender care and constant, loving attention. On pleasant days, Helen enjoyed taking a leisurely walk to Main Street for her errands and to visit with friendly acquaintances. The town air was always vibrant, with cheerful chatter, light laughter, and the distinct aromas from various local shops. The general store truly was the beating heart of the town, where you could find everything from fresh groceries to sturdy hardware. Tall wooden shelves were always filled with various goods, and the air perpetually carried the scents of roasted coffee and savory spices. Helen often paused to chat with Mrs. Henderson, the eternally cheerful woman who usually stood behind the old wooden counter. These brief conversations strengthened community ties, making the whole town feel like one big, supportive family. Do you remember the main street of your own hometown, where everyone gathered and local news was shared daily? Next to the general store was the local diner, which always offered wonderful-smelling hamburgers and freshly brewed coffee. The aroma of sizzling onions and crispy fries often drew her inside, even if just for a quick, comforting cup of coffee. Across the street stood Mr. Miller's barbershop, where the rhythmic snip of scissors and lively stories always resonated. The men of the town would often gather there, exchanging local news and friendly, good-natured banter. The gentle hum of the electric razor was a familiar part of the town's daily, comforting symphony of sounds. Helen truly delighted in the vibrant life of Main Street, a place bustling with community energy and genuine friendship. With her errands completed, she would begin her walk homeward, her grocery bags gently swaying with each steady step. The afternoon passed in a pleasant quietness as she prepared the evening meal for both George and herself. The comforting scent of a simmering stew, freshly baked bread, or her mother's meatloaf often filled the kitchen air. Her mother's old recipe for meatloaf, passed down through generations, always brought comforting, delicious smells to the entire kitchen. She eagerly anticipated the familiar sound of George's car, an auditory signal marking the end of his long workday. George's familiar whistle, announcing his arrival home, always filled her with a quiet, wonderfully contented joy. He walked through the door, his face tired, but with a gentle smile always present. A truly peaceful, reassuring presence. Dinner was their special time to share stories of their respective days, small moments that were truly cherished. The soft glow of the setting sun would stream through the kitchen window, adding a cozy warmth to the entire scene. After their meal, they would often settle into the living room, their radio serving as their main source of evening entertainment. Voices and music filled the cozy room, transporting them to different worlds without ever leaving their comfortable chairs. Do you remember your favorite radio programs? The captivating stories that brought your whole family together? Sometimes, they simply sat beside each other in comfortable silence, the other's quiet presence being perfectly enough. On certain special evenings, they would turn on their new black and white television, a fresh marvel to both of them. The flickering images on the small screen captivated their attention, a fascinating new window to the wider world. It was an exciting addition to their peaceful evenings, another wonderful way to quietly end a long, satisfying day. Helen often watched amusing comedy shows, her gentle laughter softly echoing throughout the comfortable living room. George, however, preferred the news programs, always keeping himself well informed about what was happening in the wide world. The house on Maple Street had truly become a vessel for many quiet moments of shared peace and genuine happiness. The days flowed on in a gentle rhythm of diligent work, cherished companionship, and simple, profound contentment. As night deepened, they would prepare for bed, feeling truly grateful for another full, satisfying day that had passed. The only sounds were the gentle wind softly whispering outside and the quiet ticking of the clock in the living room. Helen would lie in bed, softly recalling the day's small moments, a gentle, contented smile gracing her peaceful lips. The comfort of her bed, the secure warmth of their home, all felt like a truly simple, profound blessing. She closed her eyes, feeling the deep, encompassing peace of a life that was both wonderfully simple and profoundly full. And so, sweet dreams softly came to Helen, a very fortunate woman on quiet Maple Street. Helen often stopped at the general store, a bustling hub on Main Street, gathering daily necessities and local news. The scent of freshly ground coffee mingled with fragrant laundry soap, creating a comforting aroma there. Mrs. Smith, the store proprietor, always offered a warm greeting and shared snippets of neighborhood gossip with everyone. A cheerful chime of the bell above the door announced each new arrival, a familiar sound of community life. Does that remind you of a familiar neighborhood store from your own childhood? Perhaps a place you loved? Afterward, Helen might stop at the local diner, a lively spot for a quick bite or a cool soda. The diner buzzed with cheerful chatter and the clinking of silverware, a symphony of casual lunchtime comfort. The tantalizing scent of sizzling onions and freshly brewed coffee always filled the air, so inviting. Bright red vinyl stools lined the long counter, spinning freely with every shift of a diner patron. The jukebox played the newest pop tunes, its vibrant melodies often encouraging a spontaneous hum. Evenings at home were a cherished time of simple pleasures and shared quiet companionship. The radio remained the primary source of entertainment, a glowing presence in the living room corner. The family gathered around, listening intently to their favorite comedy shows and dramatic serials. Voices emanated from the ornate wooden box, painting vivid pictures within their imaginations with every story. Helen often crocheted or mended clothes quietly, enjoying the shared presence of her loved ones nearby. Stories transmitted through the airwaves truly felt like magic, connecting them to a wider, unseen world. Then, something entirely new began to appear on the horizon, slowly but surely captivating their attention. Black and white television sets gradually gained popularity, a marvel of modern home technology. That glowing magic box truly changed everything, bringing moving pictures right into their very own living rooms. The images were often blurry and flickering, yet they possessed an utterly mesmerizing and enchanting quality. Do you recall your first glimpse of a television screen and the excitement it brought to your own home? The number of available channels was quite limited back then, offering just a few programming choices. Families gathered to watch live broadcasts, often captivated by early variety shows or wrestling matches. These evenings felt truly special and memorable, creating shared experiences that everyone discussed afterward. They laughed together and gasped in unison, experiencing the unfolding drama right there in their own living room. Helen particularly enjoyed watching the new situation comedies, finding great amusement in their humorous plots. It truly felt as if the world was slowly expanding, bringing distant places and fresh ideas closer to home. The little house on Maple Street remained the loving center of all these burgeoning new experiences. Each day brought its own gentle rhythms and new routines, building the foundation of a shared life. From simple breakfast preparations to the quiet goodnights, every moment held its own special meaning. Life in Michigan during 1952 felt wonderfully uncomplicated, filled with everyday contentment. Yet, it was also profoundly rich with immense hope for the future and unspoken dreams. Every new dawn brought the promise of another fresh beginning, full of quiet possibilities. and each gentle sunset offered a peaceful conclusion to the day's labors and simple joys. The happy laughter of neighborhood children often echoed sweetly from the front yards and nearby streets. Birds chirped their cheerful songs from the branches of the towering old maple trees. Those days flowed by with a gentle current, surprisingly swift, yet leaving lasting imprints. Helen felt grateful for every single moment, cherishing the quiet beauty of her developing life. The house became a safe and warm sanctuary, a place where dreams took root and flourished steadily. Its walls were like a silent diary, absorbing the soft whispers and shared laughter of family life. Every faint scratch, every slight fade of paint, told a small story of daily existence. It was a simple life, yes, but profoundly rich, with an abundance of tender love and quiet joy. Old houses often hold countless memories within their very foundations, don't they? Helen often sat by the window in the quiet evenings, watching the streetlights flicker on. She pondered the day that had passed and the gentle unfolding of all the days yet to come. A profound sense of peaceful contentment settled over her, a quiet warmth in her heart. That house on Maple Street truly felt like a constant, precious blessing, a dream come true. Each night, she drifted into slumber with a feeling of deep satisfaction and quiet gratitude. The gentle whisper of the wind rustled softly through the leaves of the ancient maple trees outside. A peaceful slumber awaited, filled with hopeful dreams for tomorrow's quiet, simple joys. Helen soon discovered that a house was much more than just four walls and a roof, especially on Maple Street. It was a vibrant tapestry, woven with the threads of friendly faces and shared laughter echoing through the days. The small-town Michigan air in 1952 truly hummed with a palpable sense of genuine connection among its residents. She quickly learned that living in such a place meant always having a helping hand nearby, ready to assist. Neighbors knew each other not just by their last names, but by family stories and shared moments of joy. Children played together freely in the yards, their joyful shouts creating a cheerful soundtrack to everyday life. Helen often watched them from her kitchen window, feeling a warmth spread through her heart at the sight. Do you remember a time when every neighbor knew your grandmother's favorite pie recipe without even asking? Mrs. Henderson, from next door, brought over a freshly baked apple pie on Helen's very first moving day. Her gentle knock at the door introduced Helen to a kind smile and a warm, welcoming conversation about the neighborhood. That small gesture of kindness immediately made the unfamiliar house feel a little more like a comforting home. Mrs. Henderson even shared the local secret for keeping squirrels out of the bird feeder, a little cayenne pepper. Church on Sunday mornings was a central gathering point, bustling with familiar faces and cheerful greetings. The hymns sung together resonated through the sanctuary, their voices blending in a comforting chorus of community spirit. Afterward, everyone lingered on the steps, exchanging news and planning upcoming garden parties with great enthusiasm. These were the moments that truly anchored Helen into the rhythms of her new small-town existence. The annual county fair was another highlight, a kaleidoscope of sights, sounds, and sweet, sugary smells. Each autumn, farmers proudly displayed their prize-winning vegetables, their bountiful harvests, a testament to hard work and dedication. Helen loved watching the children delight in the merry-go-round. Their innocent giggles carried on the gentle breeze. The fair felt like a vibrant patchwork quilt, each square representing a different cherished memory for the community. Main Street itself was a hub of friendly activity. Lined with small shops owned by familiar faces, Helen quickly came to appreciate. There was Mr. Abernathy at the hardware store, always ready with a clever solution for any household repair dilemma. He knew exactly what everyone needed, often before they even asked, a true fixture of the local business scene. Do you remember the smell of sawdust and freshly cut lumber in a small-town hardware store from long ago? And then there was Miss Elmira, who ran the small general store, a treasure trove of everyday necessities and delightful curiosities. Her spectacles perched on her nose, she greeted every customer with a warm smile and a knowing twinkle in her bright eyes. Miss Elmira always had a kind word or a little piece of local gossip to share, making every visit a special occasion. She embodied the very heart of the community, a repository of stories and unspoken wisdom for everyone. Helen often stopped by just to chat, sometimes buying a simple spool of thread or a fresh loaf of bakery bread. The store shelves were meticulously organized, a charming testament to Miss Elmira's careful attention to every detail. She kept a small candy jar on her counter, always offering a sweet treat to the children who visited her establishment. She even knew everyone's birth month, subtly offering a small discount on their special day. A beloved local tradition, Helen felt a profound sense of belonging growing within her, blossoming with each passing day in this friendly town. The quiet rhythm of life here allowed for deep roots to form, connecting her to the very soul of the place. She found joy in the simple interactions, the shared smiles, and the unspoken understanding among her new neighbors. This community was like a sturdy old oak tree, its branches reaching out to embrace everyone under its comforting shade. Local festivals punctuated the year, celebrating everything from spring blossoms to the crisp harvest of autumn apples. Everyone participated, contributing homemade dishes for potlucks and decorating the town square with vibrant banners. The sense of collective effort and shared celebration made these events truly unforgettable for young and old alike. Don't you recall the excitement of a town picnic with checkered blankets spread out under the clear blue sky? A particular favorite was the 4th of July parade, a patriotic spectacle winding its way down Maple Street itself. Children rode decorated bicycles, while local veterans marched proudly, honored by the cheering crowds lining the sidewalks. The entire town gathered, a sea of smiling faces, all united in their appreciation for their country and their community. The fire department always ended the parade by hosing down the street, providing a refreshing splash on hot summer days. These simple, recurring events wove a rich tapestry of shared experiences that bound the people together tightly. Helen often thought about how different this was from the bustling, anonymous city life she had once known. Here, every face held a story, and every conversation felt like catching up with an old, cherished family member. She felt truly seen and valued, not just as a newcomer, but as an integral part of this wonderful social fabric. As evening approached, the sounds of laughter would slowly fade, replaced by the gentle chirping of crickets outside. Helen would often sit on her porch, watching the stars appear, feeling utterly content and deeply at peace. Helen remembered those warm summer afternoons at the county fair, where laughter echoed joyfully across the wide open spaces. The air was thick with the scent of buttery popcorn and sweet cotton candy, a delightful combination that always evoked cherished childhood memories. Twinkling lights adorned the carnival rides, creating a vibrant, colorful tableau as the gentle twilight descended upon their small town. Didn't these shared moments really define their true community heart? An invisible thread, weaving everyone together harmoniously? Helen and Arthur always stopped at Mrs. Henderson's booth to sample her freshly baked, delicious apple pies and other pastries. Mrs. Henderson, with her soft white hair and perpetually warm smile, had been a beloved community fixture for many, many years. Everyone knew that Mrs. Henderson's sugar cookies at the bake sale always won first prize, a secret recipe passed down through generations. She always said the secret was a dash of extra love and real butter, a simple philosophy by which she truly lived her life. On her weekly shopping days, Helen often visited Mr. Abernathy's general store right there on bustling Main Street. Mr. Abernathy, a jovial man with a thick, bushy mustache, knew everyone by name and understood their particular preferences. He always had a joke ready and a helpful piece of advice for anyone who needed a little guidance during their day. The store was not just a place for shopping. It served as the town's central hub for news and vital social interactions. Helen recalled how he gave her a small notebook for new recipes when she was a newlywed, just starting her home. He had said, "Everyone needs a place to keep their grand ideas, especially a young wife just starting out like yourself." It was a small gesture, yet it spoke volumes about his genuine and caring concern for all the people in his community. On summer evenings, neighbors often gathered on front porches, enjoying the cooler air after a long, warm day. Stories and gentle laughter drifted softly on the light breeze, like autumn leaves floating serenely upon a calm, still lake. They shared the day's struggles and their hopes for the future, strengthening the bonds that truly tied them all together. Was it not these simple, heartfelt conversations that truly created the rich tapestry of their vibrant community life? As winter arrived, gatherings moved indoors, often around a cozy fireplace with steaming mugs of rich, hot chocolate. Michigan was known for its deep, heavy snowfalls, but that never truly deterred the strong community spirit from thriving. Everyone kept a shovel by their porch, ready to help clear a neighbor's snowy path, without ever needing to be asked. The church also played a central role, hosting bake sales and potluck dinners to raise funds for those in need. On Sunday evenings at church, hymns of praise soared, filling the sanctuary with a profound sense of peace and hopeful anticipation. These gatherings were reliable markers in their busy schedules, a cherished moment for quiet reflection and meaningful connection. For Helen, this community was like a warm, comforting blanket, enveloping her in safety and kindness from every single side. People left their doors unlocked at night, trusting that their vigilant neighbors would always watch over their cherished properties. A profound sense of security and belonging permeated every single aspect of their interconnected daily lives. If a child fell from their bicycle, 3 adults would rush to offer aid before they even had a chance to truly cry. It was a simpler time indeed, but one that never lacked a profound and genuine concern for one another's well-being. Community gardens bloomed in the springtime, with everyone contributing their efforts and sharing the bountiful harvest. Tomatoes and zucchini were exchanged over back fences, a quiet symbol of their continuous and abundant generosity. The aroma of fresh baked bread often wafted from one house to another, an invisible, fragrant invitation to come visit. Do you remember those tranquil afternoons when life slowed down enough to truly savor every single passing moment? Helen often sat on her porch, knitting or reading, enjoying the cheerful bird songs and the gentle, refreshing breeze. Life on Maple Street was a gentle melody, each neighbor an essential, harmonious note in the collective symphony. Their collective presence forged a sense of deep belonging that Helen had never truly known before in her entire life. It was the solid, unwavering foundation upon which they built their shared lives and common dreams throughout the years. Helen often thought of those initial years with profound appreciation and a touch of gentle, wistful nostalgia. They were the fundamental building blocks of a life constructed upon love and deeply cherished community values. The shared laughter, the communal meals, the heartfelt advice, all wove together into a beautiful, intricate tapestry. It was a chapter of her life that she would forever carry gently within the quiet confines of her loving heart. The house on Maple Street was not merely a structure of wood and brick, but rather the beating heart of a vibrant life. It had witnessed joyous moments and tranquil evenings, the quiet whispers of deep hopes and cherished dreams. Helen closed her eyes gently, feeling the lingering warmth of those memories like a soft, comforting fire. Those years had shaped her profoundly, much like the gentle river had etched its path into the surrounding landscape. Every face, every shared story, every single kind gesture was an integral part of that delicate, cherished tapestry. Helen smiled, a soft, contented curve gracing her lips as she recalled those special, bygone evenings. There was simply nothing that could ever quite replace the deep, comforting feeling of belonging to a place that had truly embraced you. That community, that precious life, remained a warm, guiding beacon in her cherished memories even to this very day. Their beloved house seemed to hold an empty space, a new quietness that was difficult to fill. Helen's daily schedule shifted subtly, a noticeable gap appearing within her morning routines. The steady ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway now seemed much more pronounced and echoing. Helen wondered if the house truly felt bigger or simply emptier, an unfamiliar silence filling familiar nooks. John, her husband, tried his best to maintain an air of normalcy, but the absence weighed heavily on him too. Their evening meals now seemed a little too silent, lacking the familiar stories and cheerful laughter. Helen often found herself glancing toward the front door, a fleeting expectation that she might see a familiar figure. A familiar armchair, now empty, seemed to echo a lingering presence, a silent memory of who once sat there. The Daily Mail delivery became the day's most anticipated event, carrying with it a fresh wave of quiet hope. Helen would often stand by the kitchen window, watching the street for the mailman's approaching vehicle. Her heart would quicken slightly with each approaching sound of a vehicle passing by their front yard. John attempted to distract her with talk of the garden's progress or his plans for small home improvements. Their hopes were like tender, resilient shoots, patiently waiting for the warmth of the sun and gentle nourishment. The telephone, usually a cheerful sound, now held a different weight, a quiet anticipation in its ring. She would jump slightly whenever it rang unexpectedly, a fresh spark of hope suddenly igniting within her. Often, it was merely Mrs. Henderson from down the street, calling to chat about small, everyday happenings. A brief, gentle wave of disappointment would wash over her then, but she quickly composed herself. Helen often found herself clutching John's hand, seeking quiet reassurance and shared strength in their connection. The radio played soft music, but she barely heard the familiar melodies drifting through the air. Her mind often drifted to different scenarios, always filled with hopeful and positive premonitions. The evenings stretched longer, filled with unspoken thoughts and quiet, lingering hopes for the future. John read his newspaper, but frequently glanced at her with a gentle, understanding concern in his eyes. Was this pervasive quietness a heavy burden, or a deeper, unspoken understanding that they both shared? She dusted the same familiar surfaces once again, simply to keep her hands and mind gently occupied. Each passing day felt like turning a page in a well-loved book, being read with profound slowness. The sunlight still streamed beautifully through the vibrant maple leaves just outside the living room window, yet its usual comforting warmth felt a little less vibrant inside the quiet waiting rooms. Even the familiar aroma of dinner seemed slightly muted without everyone there to enjoy it together. They spoke of small, everyday things to fill the quiet spaces and keep their spirits gently anchored. Yet the underlying current of waiting remained, steadfast and strong within both their gentle hearts. One quiet Tuesday morning, a much-anticipated letter finally arrived, nestled neatly within their mailbox. It bore a familiar handwriting, not the official kind they had half-dreaded seeing for weeks. Helen's hands trembled slightly as she carefully opened the envelope, her heart beating a little faster. John watched her face silently, his own breath held in a quiet, hopeful suspense beside her. A comforting warmth spread through Helen as she read the opening, familiar lines of the handwritten letter. Their son was doing well, finding his own good way in the big, bustling city far away. He described his new job, the small room he rented, and the interesting people he had already met. He even mentioned missing Helen's famous apple pie, a sweet, comforting detail that brought a smile. Did they truly realize how long they had both been holding their breath, waiting for this news? A wave of profound relief washed over Helen, as light and pleasant as a warm summer breeze. John took the letter, reading it aloud again, his voice now filled with a newfound ease and contentment. The subtle tension that had tightened their shoulders slowly began to melt away, like ice in spring. They talked about the letter for hours, savoring every carefully chosen and heartfelt word within it. The small tear in the envelope felt like a precious portal to a distant, happy world they now glimpsed. A profound realization dawned. Their son was truly growing, forging his own good and promising path now. Their boundless love for him remained, a constant, steady light, guiding their own peaceful lives. Acceptance settled in, a quiet, gentle understanding of life's beautiful, natural, evolving flow. The house seemed to breathe again, its quietness now feeling wonderfully peaceful, not empty at all. Their worries were like the morning fog, finally lifted completely by the bright, warming sun. Helen looked at John, a soft, contented smile gracing her kind, knowing face. Full of quiet joy, Helen often found herself by the window, hands clasped, watching for the postman's familiar stride down their quiet Maple Street. Each rustle of leaves or distant car engine made her heart give a hopeful, nervous little jump in her chest. Do you remember those days when waiting felt like holding your breath? Suspended between hope and quiet apprehension, John would sometimes find her there, his kind eyes understanding the unspoken worry that lingered in the air. He'd clear his throat softly, then suggest a cup of tea, a gentle invitation to step away from the window's pull. The house itself seemed quieter, its usual hum of daily life replaced by a noticeable, almost expectant stillness. Thomas's empty chair at the kitchen table held a particular poignancy, a constant reminder of his absence. Long-distance calls were a luxury back then, usually reserved for truly urgent matters, not casual updates from afar. Every afternoon, Helen would check the mailbox, her fingers tracing the edges of the envelopes inside, hoping for the familiar handwriting. Sometimes, she'd even open an electricity bill with a flash of disappointment, a quick sigh escaping her lips. John always remained steady, a quiet anchor in their shared sea of thoughtful anticipation and gentle concern. He'd talk about the garden or the new tires for the Ford, filling the silence with everyday reassuring subjects. The house felt like a bird's nest after the fledgling had flown, still warm, but with an echoing space within its familiar walls. Helen would sometimes dust Thomas's old desk, running her hand over the smooth wood, remembering his youthful scribbles. His baseball glove still lay on the shelf, a silent testament to games played and laughter shared in their backyard. The quiet evenings felt particularly long, the radio playing softly, but not quite filling the deeper silence. They'd sit across from each other, John with his newspaper, Helen with her mending, sharing glances that spoke volumes. A gentle touch of John's hand on her arm, a shared breath, was often all the reassurance she truly needed. They understood each other's thoughts without needing words, a bond forged through years of shared life and love. The waiting was a constant hum beneath their daily routines, a soft, persistent undercurrent in the quiet house. Then, one Tuesday, the postman delivered a thick envelope, its corners slightly worn from its journey. Helen saw Thomas's clear, strong handwriting instantly, a surge of relief washing over her like a warm wave. Doesn't a letter, after a long silence, sometimes feel like a lifeline, bringing the world back into focus? She hurried inside, calling for John, her voice trembling slightly with a mixture of joy and lingering anxiety. They sat together at the kitchen table, the letter unfolded carefully between them, sharing the precious words. Thomas was well, settling into his new life, finding his feet in the bustling city, making new friends. He described his small room, the sounds of the street, and even the funny incident with a misplaced hat. The postmark showed it had traveled over 200 miles to reach them. A journey that felt immense in those days. A shared sigh escaped their lips. A soft, collective exhalation of all the worries they had unknowingly carried. Helen felt the tightness in her chest loosen, replaced by a warm, expansive feeling of quiet contentment. Their boy was growing, making his way in the world, just as they had always hoped he would do. This house on Maple Street was their foundation, but the lives they built extended far beyond its cozy walls. Helen realized that love wasn't about holding on tight, but about letting go with courage and trust. Her heart swelled with a quiet pride, watching John rereading a sentence, a soft smile gracing his lips. The quiet tension that had filled the house for days dissolved like morning mist beneath the sun's gentle warmth. They talked for a long time about Thomas, about his future, and about their own enduring little family. The house seemed to exhale too, its familiar walls now echoing with a renewed sense of peace and comfort. John reached across the table, taking Helen's hand, his grip firm and reassuring, a silent promise of their togetherness. That evening, dinner tasted sweeter, and the conversation flowed with an easy, unburdened rhythm. The future, while still unknown, no longer felt heavy with anticipation, but light with possibility. The next morning, the sun streamed into the kitchen with its usual cheerful brightness, chasing away any lingering shadows. Helen hummed as she made breakfast, the familiar sounds of their home feeling vibrant and full of life once more. Isn't it wonderful how the everyday routines can become comforting rituals after a period of uncertainty? John went about his chores with a lighter step, a whistle on his lips as he checked the morning paper. They knew Thomas would visit soon, and they began planning a special meal, discussing his favorite lemon pie. Helen even decided to polish the silver tea set, something she usually saved for very special, formal occasions. The house on Maple Street had weathered another gentle storm, strengthened by the love within its walls. Each experience, each moment of waiting, wove itself into the fabric of their shared history, making them resilient. They looked forward to the next chapters, knowing their home would always be a warm, welcoming haven. Helen smiled, a deep, contented smile, as she thought of all the years still waiting to unfold on Maple Street. The peace settling over Maple Street after the war felt like a gentle, comforting blanket, softly warming their new lives. Their small house on Maple Street became more than just four walls. It was a sanctuary, a quiet fortress for the future they were building. Every corner of it hummed with quiet hope, from the modest living room to the sun-drenched, compact kitchen where mornings began. Did every young couple starting out feel this profound sense of calm, this quiet expectation of good things to come? She often wondered. In the early mornings, the comforting scent of fresh coffee and toasting bread would drift through the house, signaling another gentle day. Her husband, Bill, would read the local newspaper, the dry rustle of pages echoing softly in the familiar morning quietness. Helen would wipe down the kitchen counters, sometimes whistling a familiar tune from the new radio they had recently purchased. Those sturdy cast-iron skillets Helen used were essential then and remain prized possessions in many kitchens even today. Enduring through decades, their lives were woven from these simple, yet profoundly meaningful moments, building a quiet, resilient foundation for their future. Helen remembered how they meticulously saved every spare nickel and dime to purchase necessities for their very first home. They chose a set of turquoise Pyrex dishes, a cheerful color still sought after by collectors, adding vibrancy to their small kitchen. An old electric mixer, a simple appliance many homemakers still cherish even today, was a source of great pride for Helen. But could anyone truly understand the sheer delight of owning something entirely your own? For the very first time, she often mused, the house was certainly not perfect, with a faint crack in the bedroom wall and creaky floorboards running down the narrow hallway. Helen remembered trying her best to camouflage these small imperfections with carefully chosen framed pictures and colorful hooked rugs. But Bill always insisted those little quirks made the house even more unique and uniquely endearing to both of them. One afternoon, while they were painting the window frames, Bill accidentally spilled a full can of paint onto the brand new kitchen linoleum. Helen didn't get angry. Instead, she burst out laughing, and they cleaned up the bright blue mess together with many shared chuckles. It was a tiny moment, but it taught Helen that life didn't need to be perfect to be truly beautiful and profoundly cherished. Those small imperfections, like gentle scars on a well-loved heart, only added to the house's character and their unfolding story. Each evening, after dinner, they would often settle onto their worn sofa, listening to radio dramas and news reports on the large console radio. It was a time for connection, for sharing thoughts about the day gone by, and dreaming quietly about what the future held. Helen would often mend clothes under the soft glow of a lamp, her needle clicking gently, creating the familiar sounds of loving care. She often wondered, do the quilted blankets Helen lovingly crafted still find cherished places in homes and families today? Neighbors frequently stopped by, bringing small gifts or offering helpful advice to the new young couple settling into their home. Mrs. Peterson from next door gifted them a treasured, handwritten family recipe book filled with generations of culinary wisdom. It was a kind gesture, an unwritten tradition of small-town Michigan life that Helen would forever hold dear in her heart. Helen recalled an insider detail. The local general store allowed them to run a tab until Bill's payday, a true community lifeline. That helpful arrangement truly carried them through those initial lean months when finances were tight and the future felt uncertain. They learned to cherish every single dollar and found genuine joy in the simplest pleasures that life had to offer them. A pot of cheerful marigolds on the windowsill, a borrowed book from the small-town library, or a quiet walk during the golden sunset. Their life together felt like a lovingly hand-stitched quilt, with each tiny thread representing a small, cherished moment or memory. Helen realized that happiness wasn't one grand event, but rather the sum of thousands of small, interconnected, joyful things. These little things, like tiny seeds planted in fertile ground, slowly germinated and blossomed into a beautiful garden of enduring love. Bill would often bring home wildflowers he found on his walk from the factory, placing them lovingly in a simple glass jar. They were not expensive blooms, but they symbolized the tender love and thoughtful care he consistently showed for Helen. Helen recalled that sometimes she felt a tiny bit smug about their new house and the wonderful life they were building. It was a sweet feeling of deep contentment, mixed with just a touch of youthful naivete and hopeful expectation for the future. They were both so young, with their entire lives stretched out before them, and everything felt wonderfully within their reach. Helen learned to garden from her neighbor, diligently planting rows of tomatoes and green beans in their small backyard patch. The scent of damp earth and the sweet taste of fresh garden vegetables were simple pleasures she came to deeply cherish. Michigan summers, with their long, sun-drenched days and cool, refreshing nights, were ideal for embracing their new life. They often ate dinner on the screened-in porch, listening to the crickets chirp and watching fireflies flicker magically in the growing twilight. Helen remembered one time Bill tried to fix a leaky faucet himself, only managing to make the drip considerably worse. She had to call the plumber from the next town over, who arrived with a sympathetic chuckle at their predicament. These were the everyday moments, the small, endearing mistakes that became a cherished part of their shared life story. And through all these little ups and downs, their love had grown steadily stronger, becoming deeper and more resilient each day. The house on Maple Street was more than just a structure of wood and brick. It was a living, breathing, beating heart, a place filled with the echoes of laughter, the grace of forgiveness, and the quiet whispers of enduring, steadfast love. Whenever she remembers, Helen can still almost smell the sweet, intoxicating scent of the honeysuckle blooming on the fence. Helen often spent idle afternoons tidying her new home, savoring every fresh and unfamiliar corner. She loved smoothing the crisp new curtains and neatly folding linen towels inside the cupboard. Whenever she heard the wind whistle past a window, Helen felt immensely safe and wonderfully cozy. Do you remember that deep sense of peace when life seemed a string of gentle, quiet moments? Helen learned to bake the perfect apple pie in her classic gas oven, a thoughtful housewarming present. The scent of cinnamon and apples drifted through the kitchen, truly making the house their own personal home. She still kept that old Sunbeam mixer, a cherished relic from those wonderfully formative early years. That small electric mixer whipped countless batches of cake batter and mashed potatoes for family meals. Helen often said a house was not just wood and brick, but rather the stories carefully made within its walls. Stories of late-night reading and bright Sunday mornings filled with the golden Michigan sunlight. Bill would work in the garden, tending to each rose bush with careful and deliberate attention. Helen would bring out a cool glass of lemonade as he rested on the old, comfortable porch swing. He always insisted nothing quite compared to the scent of freshly cut grass on a warm summer afternoon. Do you recall the small, significant tasks that shaped your daily life and sense of purpose? They learned to be good neighbors, sharing bits of wisdom and favorite recipes across garden fences. Regular gatherings at Mrs. Miller's house meant swapping garden seeds and sharing helpful magazine articles. That was an insider detail of small-town Michigan. Everyone knew and genuinely cared for each other. This support network felt like a warm, comforting quilt wrapped around the residents of Maple Street. Helen realized that buying a house was not merely about owning a tangible, physical property. It was about planting roots, building a family, and becoming part of something much larger than oneself. She sometimes felt a bit clumsy with the new responsibilities of being a homemaker and a wife. There were times when pies accidentally burned, or laundry inexplicably shrunk at the wrong moment. But Bill always had a ready smile and a comforting hug for his beloved Helen, no matter what happened. He would say, "My love, every home possesses its own charming and unique imperfections." Long winter evenings were spent listening to the radio, dreaming together about their future lives. The Shadow program and soothing jazz melodies filled the quiet room with comforting sound. Helen remembers that sometimes she still finds similar vintage radios in antique shops even today. They are gentle reminders of a slower era when entertainment was much less noisy and demanding. Do you still recall those radio nights when your imagination was truly free to wander and roam? The house on Maple Street was not a grand castle, nor was it some lavish, sprawling mansion. It was a humble place, yet built upon a solid foundation of enduring love and quiet perseverance. Every brick and every plank held the silent, heartfelt dreams of both Helen and her husband Bill. It was where they learned to be a family, like a steady star, shining brightly in the vast night sky. The rooms witnessed shared laughter and quiet tears, unspoken hopes, and whispered evening prayers. Helen often wondered if these old walls could somehow recount their many cherished stories. Every scratch on the floorboards, every faded mark on the wallpaper was a testament to their history. As the years unfolded, they transformed the house into a treasured collection of precious memories. Do you ever consider that the homes we inhabit become an integral part of who we truly are? That house still stands, a quiet symbol of enduring peace and promises faithfully kept through time. It remains, even as the gardens have changed and the familiar roads have been smoothly repaved. Helen often visits, walking slowly along the sidewalk. Remembering those long-ago precious days, she recalls the smell of fresh laundry soap hanging on the clothesline in the gentle Michigan breeze, a clean, crisp scent, evocative of satisfying afternoons spent diligently completing household chores. It still represents a beginning, a hopeful new life after the long, difficult years of war. $200 and an entire lifetime ahead, unfolding like an unwritten, promising book. Helen smiles, a warm smile like the golden afternoon sunlight filtering through the maple trees. Life had granted her more blessings than she ever dared to truly hope for in her youthful days. Helen had lived a full life, rich with abundant love and simple, comforting, everyday joys. And sometimes, on quiet autumn afternoons, she can still faintly perceive something familiar, a deeply comforting presence, the sweet, warm aroma of freshly baked apple pie wafting gently from her very own kitchen.